Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, How to Use Change Management as a Lever for Improving Service Delivery and Minimizing Downtime. I am Jyoti Bhagat, Senior Correspondent with Express Computer. One of the most challenging ITIL processes for IT organizations to implement and execute is the change management process. If done right, change management can be a big lever for raising the bar for service delivery. If not executed well, change can impact service delivery and users can be affected. It is also equally important to inform users and customers of the IT organizations about scheduled changes to avoid disruptions. The final element of a change management decision is risk. Managing change is really about managing risk to the organization by understanding the potential impact of a change on the live environment and taking the appropriate actions to prevent a business disruption. In this webinar, we will talk about the most important steps that organizations should follow to ensure a successful implementation of ITIL change management process. Practical tips for classifying changes, risk assessment, planning, and running the change advisory board process meeting. How to do testing and deployment of templatize, change request, and change creation. To automate change workflows proactively. Before I hand over to our speakers, I will go over the webinar information. The webinar is being broadcasted live and will be available as on demand on our website. This is an audio-video webinar. We will have poll questions in between. Request all to participate in the same. We will have a round of Q&A towards the end of the webinar. You can send in your questions using the Q&A text box during the session, and the speaker will address the same after the presentations. If you face any technical issues, please use the same Q&A text box to send in your issues, and we will try to sort the same to the best of our abilities. If any of your questions are unanswered, Symphony Summit AI team will connect with you over the mail to answer the same. Now, our speakers for the day are Rajashekharan Unnikrishnan, Director Marketing, Symphony Summit AI. Rishi Sundaraman, Associate Director, Symphony Summit AI. That's all from my side now. Without taking more of your time, I invite Mr. Rajashekharan to take the session forward. Over to you, sir.
Thanks everyone for joining this webinar, and we'll make sure that you have next 1 hour of productive time and interaction. You might be wondering that what is there in the background of us? Okay, what's the background of mine and what is in the background of Rishi? Just want to really tell you about that. It's a unique initiative from Symphony Summit AI. We call it as IT Hero Rises. The objective of this initiative is essentially to recognize the IT support and the IT help desk team of the organizations. I'm sure that you would have witnessed many extraordinary stories where your IT support team would have walked extra mile to fulfill the organization commitments. It could be probably during the last Diwali when you were celebrating with your family. Probably your colleague in the help desk team might be remotely supporting a service engineer in the server room and trying to fix the issue. Or maybe during the last weekend, an outage of application happened and he worked till 3 a.m. to really fix the issue. You would have seen this kind of stories actually happening within the organizations, and many of these stories and many of their contributions are not really spoken much. So IT Hero Rises is an initiative to acknowledge and endorse and recognize these talents, the IT support and the help desk team who walk that extra mile to really fulfill their organizational commitment and also ensure that business continuity stays in the organizations. So there is a website, and you will find many stories which are featured on the IT Hero website. What I would sincerely request all of you to visit the website and nominate your colleague for this IT Hero recognition. It's a very simple process. Just nominate, and then we will make sure that we will connect and we will sort of curate the story for them. And it is itheroprices.com is the website. Okay. Now, coming back to the core topic of today's webinar, which is about the change management. One of the recent examples or very interesting case studies which we have experienced from our organization around the change management specifically would have happened in the last 12 to 18 months or so, which is around that when the organizations wanted to open up their workplaces after the pandemic, and the process which they wanted to really automate, streamline the process and the automation which they had to just do in their existing organizations. So there are very interesting examples and the case studies which we have witnessed during this lockdown time. Let me take one and then share that with you. This is for a leading manufacturing company. Some of the challenges which the organization faced was that when they wanted to reopen the workplaces and they wanted to know about that, how to really reduce the density of the office space and make sure that okay, the critical functions division open up first. Make sure that okay, there is a vaccination drive that really happens, and how do you really track it better? Doing the employee survey, making sure the temperature recording that happens in the organization, automating this entire PPE inventory management and all that stuff, tracking the employee health, scheduling the maintenance, automating the maintenance, going through the approval process and automating all these processes. And we've actually, there are many use cases which we have witnessed, right from the employee side in terms of that, taking the employee readiness survey, vaccination confirmation, self-check into the offices, reporting the travel history. And when it comes to the facilities and the HR, automating the high alert notifications, managing the disinfectant service providers in various offices in various locations. So this particular customers had offices probably many places in the country, and they wanted to really automate all this disinfectant process and the other thing and provide that, okay, manage the vendor, guest appointments, system screening, and tracking the entire thing better. And specifically for the head of the functions, making sure that having the visibility of the entire organizations, the status of the health of the employees, and what is happening and how these processes are being followed and the changes in the process which they have made, and sort of really monitoring all that stuff. There are like many use cases. We are going to demonstrate some of this during the today's webinar. Moving on, before we really move to the demonstration of the change management, we wanted to briefly talk about Summit AI. I'm sure that most of you would have heard about Summit AI, but maybe some of you do not have the full information about Summit AI. So I have a few slides where I want to really talk about that Summit AI. This is not going to take much time. And Symphony Summit AI is an artificial intelligence driven IT and enterprise service management suite. We've been recognized as a Gartner Parent Sites Customer's Choice for the last 3 years in a row. We've been featured in the IDC MarketScape as a major player, and the Forrester Now Tech reports. We've been the preferred choice for the CIOs in the country and also in the Asia region, I would say. We've been winning the CIO choice recognition for the last 4 years in a row in the IT service management space. And early this year, Economic Times has written about positioned Summit AI as the best tech brands in the country. Symphony Summit AI is largely a group company of Symphony AI, which is essentially a $1 billion fund, which is created for incubating and coming up with ideas and leveraging artificial intelligence and the other thing. So we are one of the group companies of Symphony AI, which is located in Bay Area in the US. We have grown to 250 plus customers in the last few years. And what you see here are some of the reference customers. According to a leading analyst firm, Symphony Summit AI has been disrupting and becoming the fast emerging player in the IT management space. We have customers across North America, South America, Europe, of course, in many parts of the Asia, specifically in Southeast Asia, Japan, Australia, and of course, the delivery center based in India and North America. Summit AI has been the most preferred enterprise class IT service management solution as per Gartner Peer Insights. Gartner Peer Insights Customer's Choice is a recognition which is given based on the ranking and the performance by the IT decision makers and the CIOs, based on their personal engagement and the experience with that specific vendors. If you see here, there are many evaluation criteria as a decision makers you would be expecting and evaluating a vendor based on product capabilities, evaluation and contracting, integration and deployment, service and support. All these are essentially the evaluation criteria, and across all these criteria and parameters, Summit AI has scored far higher compared to the rest of these players, the next best solutions available in the market, I would say. And if this is Gartner Peer Insight is available, you can go to the website and check on the Gartner website itself. Summit AI has leadership in many verticals in the regions which we operate. If you look at telecommunications, we work with some of the large telecom players in Asia. When it comes to the financial services, we work with about close to 40 BFSI companies in India and in many parts of the world. And when it comes to the automobile, most of the leading automobile manufacturers are the customers of Summit AI. Let's take an example: Maruti Suzuki, Hero Honda, and Royal Enfield, Toyota Kirloskar Motors, Bajaj Auto, and many others are actually the customers of Summit AI. We have leadership in most of the verticals which we operate in. Now, coming back to that, a robust digital experience for employees is the most impactful investment the organization can really make. If you really look at the digital transformation is happening everywhere. The organizations are accelerating digital business initiative, specifically after COVID. 70% of the boards called out this as a priority. 90% of the CIOs and CTOs report greater use of digital channels to reach out to the customers. 80% of the CIOs and CTOs, like you, report the faster rate of new products and new service introduction, leveraging digital channels. So you really look at the digital transformation is happening everywhere, but most of this digital transformation initiatives are designed to cater to the end customer or the end users of your product or the services. Go back and look at that. What is your digital strategy for delivering the employee first experience? And you probably would not have many of their examples, which we've been seeing that we work with 250 customers and we know this and based on our interactions with it. No digital transformation is complete unless it is driven inside, outside. So if you really look at the employees are your greatest strength. The most of the forward-looking organizations in the world, they've realized this and they really focus on that specifically after COVID and specifically during this hybrid mode of working. They focus on creating employee engagement, making sure that the employee productivity is there and you have the right tools and technologies that can really improve and accelerate the employee productivity in the organizations. They have redesigned the business processes and they made sure that, okay, there are collaboration channels and tools available. And they started leveraging AI and automation to make sure that they deliver exceptional employee experience. Let me illustrate this with an example. So here is an individual, one individual and two personas of an individual. So let's call this individual as probably Rahul. And these are actually two personas of Rahul. Rahul as a consumer and Rahul as an employee. If you really look at in their personal life of Rahul, Rahul has been exposed to the consumer-driven technologies like say cab aggregator. Okay, he would be probably that using Uber or Ola to go to the offices or go to the airports and the others. He leverages big basket and offers for the daily groceries, and the restaurants are practically there in your pocket. They use the mobile applications and to make sure that they order their foods and the other thing. And most of your purchases, all of us, are done on Flipkart or on Amazon. So this is the consumerized technologies. Your employees as a consumer exposed to it. what differentiates them, or what are the probably that some of the characteristics of this, like these consumer-driven technologies? They are very easy to access. They are quite intuitive and menu-driven. They're predictable. You book it, you know that when you're going to happen, what is the status of it. There is a clear, well-defined SLA and the others. But let's look at it, the same Rahul as an employee, okay? And imagine if there is a specific service need. His laptop is broken, or he has to get an extra storage space. Look at the process one had to really go through in the organization to fulfill that service requirement. He had to go take the approval from the manager. And if it's beyond a certain value, we have to take approval from the finance and sometimes from the HR, and then just call up the IT service desk, multiple follow-up through phone. If you're physically working in the office, you have to actually run pillars to the post to sort of really make sure that your service need is fulfilled in that organization. So look at the kind of a process one had to really go through in the organization as an employee. So this is where you need to really transform and create a digital workflow. Ensure that there are many functions in the organizations, from IT, HR, finance, admin, facilities. All of them would have their service needs. How you could create a single service portal for all the service needs in the organizations, and make sure that your service delivery in the organizations happen the way it is designed and the way your employees are really exposed in their personal life, like consumer-driven, consumerized way of delivering the services with easy access, intuitive, omni-channel, multi-tenant collaboration with clear defined SLA and the other things. So this is where Symphony Summit AI comes into the picture, okay? Help delivering next generation employee experience. See, the point here is that make sure that your workplace technologies keep up the pace with the consumer technologies, and make sure that you provide a platform for cross-functional employee experience and provide quick and easy access to service anytime, anywhere, specifically in the hybrid world, which we really operate. We all operate from different places in different things most of the time. Okay, you're on the road, traveling, and all that stuff. So just provide the omni-channel support. Unlock productivity by replacing manual and siloed processes with digital workflow and automation. All this as an outcome can help deliver more engaged, more happy, more productive employees in the organization. So this is where Symphony Summit AI comes into the picture. If you really look at our core offerings, are IT service management, employee service management, asset management, and service automation. So consider this as the top layer as the organizations or the different functions in an organization, from IT, HR, facilities, and everything. Or each function would have their own respective service needs. And these functions interact with the offerings, or you call it as the systems of records, using multiple engagement mode. Let's call that as the systems of engagement. It could be web chat, Microsoft Teams, Slack, email, voice, Skype, Jabber, and various other things. But what differentiates Symphony Summit AI from the rest of the players is essentially this middle layer, which you see here, which is called systems of intelligence. This layer differentiates Summit AI from the rest of the players. We leverage artificial intelligence, machine learning, and natural language processing to make sure that the intent of identification, intent classification, root cause analysis, prediction is done, reasoning is done, and you're able to just provide far better experience in the responses to the employee. So the system of intelligence, which is powered by artificial intelligence and automation, differentiates Summit AI from the rest of the players. This is done through our digital agent, AI-powered digital agent called CD. We might be briefly touching up that during the demo. With that, I will invite my colleague, Rishi, to take you through the demo and provide the tangible version of what we just spoke about it, and give a better view of that, okay, how Summit AI can help the organizations in the change management processes. Rishi and Jyoti, before we move to Rishi, can we run the poll?
Yeah, sure, Mr. Rajashekaran. I request the audience to participate in the poll. The question is, are you looking for any of the following solutions in the next 6 to 12 months? It is a multiple choice question. The options are IT service management, enterprise service management, that is single service portal across the organization, HR, IT, finance, marketing, etc. IT asset management, all of the above, none of the above. I am repeating the question. Are you looking for any of the following solution in the next 6 to 12 months? It's a multiple choice question. IT service management, enterprise service management, that is single service portal across the organization, IT, HR, finance, marketing, etc. IT asset management, all of the above, none of the above.
So once again, good evening, everybody, and thanks for your time. And I'm Rishi here. And as we have the context, right, so we would be looking at how change management will be used as a lever to improve the overall service delivery of the IT organization, ensuring minimal downtime. Okay. So one of the key things that change management is less adapted are probably the challenges that many of the organizations feel in adopting change management, which is associated to one of the key ITL processes, is primarily many of the solutions or options that is available with the customers are primarily lacks visualization, right? So that is one of the prime reasons. And most importantly, we also understand that which is primarily the challenging part of executing this change management process, right, which is one of the critical processes in the ITL stack, right? So it's a big challenge and very hardest to execute, as it has got complex set of workflows, assignments, and the tasks that needs to be performed, right? So that becomes very, very challenging. Many of the organizations, due to these challenges, right, use this as a service request process, right, which primarily would not deliver primarily the communication plan that we see as one of the challenges, right? So there is no organization-wide visibility in terms of the change calendar. Why this is important is primarily across the organization. So there are business teams primarily who are primarily the key users of the applications, the business application. It might be a CRM, it might be an ERP, or it might be a financial application that is, or it might be a order logging system that is there, right, which they do not have the visibility and they can't primarily plan their activities, right, because of this lack of visibility of the change calendar that is expected, that is there, right? And primarily standardized CMDB to identify the impact, right? So today we talk about virtualization, right, digitization, containerization, right? So typically there is no dedicated system running for each and every application. So most of the instances are shared, right, primarily for when a particular hardware configuration is done to a large system, right? It might affect multiple business users who have shared those instances, right? So that kind of visibility, right, and non-uniform processes, right, are being adapted, which becomes a key challenges for an organization. So what this presents primarily is the opportunities, right? The challenges always present opportunities. And to deep understanding the effect of change management is primarily, we all understand of the objective of an ITL-driven change management process, right, which is primarily controlling the life cycle of changes in a completely controlled manner, and based on which the purpose is primarily to ensure that the IT teams are business aligned, and primarily they ensure that the changes are primarily do not affect, right, the critical changes that they perform, right, do not affect the business. And if at all there is primarily a change that is required, right, the respective business stakeholders are involved so that they take the feedback, and timely planning and standardization of the process is achieved, right? The scope can be anything, right? It can be a simple documentation that probably a policy document that you want to revamp, change, right, to ensure that what are the historical changes, what are the impact, right? Or it might be a complex IT-related changes, which includes probably an application rollout or application upgrade, or it might be a hardware level firm upgrade, or probably as an organization, you're moving from say Windows 8 to Windows 10, right? That is primarily a major challenge, or you are primarily moving your mail server from your on-premise location to a cloud like O365 or Google Suite or anything that you might be looking at, right? So these are primarily the scope of primarily a change management, right? Let us see how does primarily provide Summit uses this opportunity or challenges that are there in terms of primarily looking at the ITL process, right? Where we talk about the various aspects, the 7 R's, or what we call it, primarily to understand who raises the change, what is the reason for the change, what return is required from the change, right? What kind of expect we have, whether the performance is going to improve or probably it is going to take more workload, right? So all those kind of returns can be analyzed. The risk involved, that is primarily if there is be a major downtime, so what should be my business continuity plan during those period, right? So should I plan it during weekends? What kind of resources, right? Am I provisioned with adequate resources that are required to implement the change? Who are the people are responsible? There might be specialized domain teams that are available for each, probably an infrastructure team, a security team, an application team, a database administrator, who are primarily responsible to own this, and what are the primary relationships driving this change. So what's primarily leading to this change, or probably an incident that was frequently occurring was primarily going through a root cause analysis, which led to a change, right? So this is how primarily ITL defines what are the things that you should definitely know when implementing a change. Now let us see how does Summit converts this in its platform, right? Of course, there are multiple roles and responsibilities that can be created, task roles that can be created. One is primarily the logging the change record. Primarily, whenever any requester is raising a change record, right? So they enter the change details where they can categorize, classify, prioritize. When I say categorize, whether it is primarily a standard change, a normal change, emergency change as defined by the ITL process, or probably you want to call it as my monthly changes that I do, probably a monthly patch updates that I perform in my organization, or probably a frequent update that I do to the firmware, right? So these are primarily the categorization and what kind of priority it should have, right? So that again primarily, and most importantly, the risk assessment. How do I mitigate the risk? What are the risks? Whether I do have enough experience to handle this change? Are there any impact to the business? If there is an impact, what is primarily the number of hours that I'm going to look at, right? And what is primarily my planned change period, change window that I'm going to do it, right? So whether I need to plan the change, right, based on the weekend schedules, or probably I can do it during off business hours, right? So all those things can be identified while logging a change request. The change request can do it. And once the change request is logged, it primarily goes to the reviewer, right? As you can see, the authorizer will review whether this is primarily CR qualifies for a change process, and what primarily are his observations, right? Of course, the authorizer can be of multiple roles. It can be a reporting manager, it can be a work group owner of a particular service delivery team, maybe an application or infrastructure or security, right? It might be a group of work group owners, team leaders who are there, or it can be dynamic, right? So whenever you associate a change, there is always a CI, either a server or a router, or probably the business head who needs to be involved, right? Depending on the change and what kind of CA is getting affected. Probably when you say that you're going to reconfigure a router, or you're going to do a change in your routing table in your critical router, which is key to connect your business application for both for your internal users as well as your external users who are connecting to the critical business applications. Based on a particular router, you want to ensure that the stakeholders are involved based on the CA, because that particular router might provide mailing services from the internal system. It might be exposing an ERP system or a CRM system, so that would be the prime. So you can involve the necessary big stakeholders and involve them in the entire dynamic approval process, right? And once that is there can be multiple reviewers who are approvers, and then you can have scheduled CAB meetings using MS Teams. We have an out-of-the-box MS Teams integration using which you can schedule the Teams meeting, and based on which You can have weekly CAB updates. Most organizations will have Tuesday or Thursday type of CAB meetings. So dependently, you can schedule that, and based on which you can also assign various tasks, right? For example, before primarily upgrading a system, you want to ensure that the server team does the necessary data backup, or the application team does the backup, necessary resources, or probably a staging environment is well prepped for adapting this particular change, so that when you can fail over, all these kind of tasks can be assigned to a technician in a parallel, right? So once the CAB approves, it goes through primarily the implementation process. And once it is implemented, it always goes to primarily conducting a post into, is there any business impact, whether there has been significant raise in the number of incidents that are causing after the change, whether there is any difficulty from the user end. So those kind of things can be monitored using the post-implementation review. For example, if you have recently upgraded a particular application, say a HRMS application, and post upgrade, you see that there is a spike in the number of incidents that are logged related to HR application. So that can be reviewed, and accordingly, what kind of review or rollback plans that can be adopted can be defined and adhered, right? So this is how primarily the out-of-the-box ITIL defined processes of Summit platform in the change management process helps you to quickly adapt using the standardized out-of-box features, where you don't have to really reinvent the wheel of the ITIL change management process. All the best practices, tasks, and other things are completely inbuilt and available. So let me move on to primarily actual demo environment that we have here, primarily to look at how best primarily this can be brought. So one of the key aspects is, as you know, primarily Summit is always a multi-tenant platform, right? For each and every business unit within your organization, you can deploy this process, right? Whether it is incident, request, or change, you can have. And of course, every technician will have his own dashboard, or his workspace, we call it, where the analyst technician can know what are the primarily the change records that he is associated with, and what are the things that have been assigned. If there is any tasks that are assigned to him, that will be visible. And accordingly, you can know the demographic status, whether it is an initiated, approved, implemented, how many of them, and overall demographic information about the change record is completely visible, right? So let me quickly look at, pick up this particular list of change record that is there by clicking that number, and I've already opened the interest of time. I open this, where you primarily get the technique or the CR administrator or the CR requester will be able to quickly view all the CRs that are in place, and he can primarily use this navigation button, which is primarily create a new change request, which can be created. Once he clicks on the change request, he gets into the screen, which I have pre-filled some information, right, so that I don't do the data entry work while during this session, right? A pre-filled data. So primarily, whenever you are making a change, so these are some of the basic information that the change requester should have an understanding, right? Primarily, of course, the requester is always based on the login, is by default populated, or if you want to change it, you can change it. And then typically there can be multiple work groups, let's say application team, it might be related to infrastructure, or it might be a security or a firewall setting that is there. So you can pick up which team primarily will be the owner of this particular change, and what was the log time, what is the status which is default populated whenever I'm submitting my first CR. So it is always in requested, and I can decide what is the category, and this category can be completely custom defined. It need not be what you see drop down box here. It can be a medium change. What is the category, whether it is server, internet, right, or network related, or it is application related, I can pick. I can also have my defined process types, change types, which is primarily normal, stand, emergency, or primarily the ITIL defined change types that we have. In addition to that, I told you that if you want to ensure that quickly identify this as my monthly change, or probably quarterly changes that I implement, that I do, you can also rename these particular change types or create these change types based on your requirement. So once you primarily do, it can be primarily the trigger for the change, right? I will say that I can say that it's primarily multiple incidents occurring on application performance. right? So this was primarily the trigger, where primarily you can have the relationship built here, right? So where I can link multiple incidents or probably problem record that was primarily leading to this particular change, I will primarily be able to see it here, right? So this is something I'll be able to link and identify what is primarily. I can also bring up all the necessary CIs, right? For example, I want to, this is primarily an application server. So primarily this is owned by application support team. I want to know. So this is primarily the host that is primarily causing it, so that I'll be able to see that. So that is primarily, I'll be able to associate the CI. And when I click on the CI, I'll be able to understand the relationship of this particular CI with multiple other CIs, impacted the CIs along with it. So using primarily this data primarily flows in from CMDB, right? If time permits, I will take you through the CMD process, which is primarily an integrated module with the change management process, right? So that is primarily associated. So the key aspects of logging a change are primarily identified. Then what I also do, interesting, we talk about the impact, right? What kind of impact it might cause and what are the potential risks. So I can define multiple questionnaires. Here I am trying to assess the business risk, what kind of business risk that it can process, right? While I'm implementing change, whether I can define these questionnaires, I can create a rating for these questionnaires, and based on my responses given by the change requester, my ranking is provided. So in this particular assessment, right, I have decided to answer that this is very a simple change, that there is no major impact to the business. So I said, so that's the reason, based on the answers that I have provided to the risk questionnaires that I have populated, which can be custom configured also, I have my risk that is identified based on the business risk and operational risk. Again, operational risk can be a completely set of different questions, whether you have experience, whether you have created a rollback plan. So what is the time period, right? So all those things can be primarily identified and identify the operational risk, right? And who will be primarily carrying over this change, that again can be identified. And then I also can define what is the start date and end date. In addition to that, I can also provide lead time. When you primarily do a normal change, which is primarily goes through its own specific set of process that you define, right? There has to be adequate. For example, if it requires approval, you want to ensure that normal lead time will take about 3 days time or 2 days time or 5 days, depending on what kind of changes you are configuring as normal change. You can identify the lead time, based on which the start time of the change management is identified, and planned end time is again planned according to the change timelines that has been identified. So you can include any number of custom information that you would like to have, but critically, some of these information, which are ITIL defined metrics, are available for you out of the box. You just have to fill in, or it can be templatized. Or for example, I can also have templates that are there, based on which I'll be able to upload the template and start raising the change request. So I can identify the risk. What are the risks of change failure, the business impacts that are there, what can be the change of planner, and primarily I can also identify if there is a backout plan in case the change fails. What is your backout plan? What kind of impact you might have. So these are primarily the initial analysis that a change requester need to have an understanding, based on which, as also I said, the platform comes with various role definition capabilities, based on which you can define a change requester, a change manager, right, a cab approver. All those role templates can be completely created. And then if there is any test plan, when this is primarily going to the test phase or the implementation phase, you want to create test plans, that also can be added. And in addition to that, when I'm making a request, right, before it is moving to the next stage, I can always create a checklist, right? What kind of primarily, whether the defects that have been identified are closed, is there any respective teams have been communicated, right? So whether the change communication has been sent, I can create my own custom checklist. These are not templates, but you can define your own checklist that are available. So these are some of the very out-of-the-box features that you will be able to use in change management, which makes the entire journey of the change management process very, very easy, right? So you don't have to have complex process or reinvent the wheel. Summit offers this as an out-of-the-box features, So what is the data that you would require needs to be filled in, what kind of priorities, urgency, questions. You fill in that questions, this becomes a seamless set of actions that you can perform. And you will always know at any given point of time, the change owners will know that what kind of approval workflow that it has got, right? So who are the list of approval, right? What kind of alert configuration that I need to do? Who are the people who should be alerted? Which are the workflow available? Or you want to primarily highlight the bulletin board, right? Which is primarily a scrolling mark that comes in whenever you log into the ITSM page. You want to primarily bring up there is a change planned which has got a downtime for between this period, between Saturday evening to Sunday morning, you have a downtime period. That kind of bulletin can be added, and based on which what kind of message you want to be shown can be defined. So these are some of the out of the box. As I see that it does not require any major technological expertise to handle this, feed this information. Anybody who's got the understanding of the change management process can go ahead in filling this information, right? So as I told you, I can always build the relationship that are there and what are the tasks that are assigned to various teams. For example, when I say that you are migrating a particular application, which is one of the critical changes, you want to ensure that the respective application team is working with the infra team to have the necessary backup that are taken and they are properly restorable. Probably you want to ensure before this change is being implemented, the backup data is properly a mock session, mock drill session of restoration data needs to be completed, or probably any specific network port opening because of the platform upgrade that would have happened in the application, right? You want additional ports needs to be open at the firewall level. These kind of tasks can also be created, right? And you can have a complete requirement gathering in terms of what are the resource requirements, or if there is any dependency on vendor, what kind of vendor that is there, you will be able to completely do. In addition to that, the system also provides configurable workflow options. For example, if you want to implement this particular task and you want to include an additional approval, I primarily can add this approval. So what should be there? It should be primarily risk level authentication, and approver should be reporting manager, and update state task to risk level authentication. So based on which I can primarily do this, and then I can bring up the workflow to this. So I'll be able to primarily create such approvals, right? So provides a complete flexibility in terms of defining how your change request workflow needs to be completely configured, right? So then again, I'm picking up another CR record, which primarily to show the life cycle stages of the change. As you can see, the authorization has been complete and the CAB approval is also complete. In the CAB approval, many things primarily it can be a single approval, or it primarily can be multiple CAB approvals, or you want to ensure that if there are 5 CAB approvals, if minimum 3 members have approved, you can have deemed the CAB approval has been completely done, right? So, and based on which I can also bring up the implemented one, right? So, which is primarily what is implemented. And once the change is implemented, it can go to you can create a release record from here, right? From here, you can create a release record so that the release team can evaluate this particular bug fix or probably a code change snippet that has been given. The release team verify and do a proper UAT, and based on which it can go, right? So this is primarily how the entire change management workflow pans out. And more importantly, you can see this CAB meeting, the weekly CAB meeting that has been set up, right? So in the CAB meeting, I can decide what is primarily the CAB meeting is all about, whether it is a repetitive kind of CAB or whether it is primarily emergency CAB, right? So you don't want primarily define emergency CAB meeting also. For example, when there is a major downtime, when there is a 0-day attack and you want to immediately implement a particular patch to an application, right? You would necessarily need not go through all these process when you do. You can also create an emergency change, and based on which it can have a faster review cycle and implementation cycle. There can be war room created, and based on which this change. And what are the changes that have been discussed during this particular CAB meeting. What is the minutes of meeting that are captured? Who are primarily the action owner, and what is primarily the deadline on these action items? So this is something as part of the CAB meeting you will be able to define and configure, right? And there are various configuration options available for primarily an administrator or probably a tool administrator who can primarily look at these, right? It also primarily comes with a lot of once the data is available and fulfilled, right? You can have a lot of executive reporting. You can slice and dice the data. You can have a published dashboard of all the change management critical changes that is there. You can publish the change calendar that has been there. You want to primarily filter out and see that what are the critical changes that are happening during weekdays, what is happening after post office hours. So all those slicing and dicing mechanism is completely available, right? So the platform assets comes with a complete versatile reporting capabilities, right? That is there. And one of the key supporting or complementary module to the change manager or important module is primarily the CMDB, primarily where you can create an inventory of various production, non-production, test development, CI information, which is called the configuration item as per the ITIL standards. You can have a complete list view of all the change CMDB items or the CI items in a completely a viewable tabular format, or it can be in a tile format. And you can primarily pick and choose what kind of CIs what kind of information that you want to have within the CMDB, what sort of hardware information that you want to maintain, right? What kind of software information. With our asset management also added to this CMDB, the discovery piece comes in. It can also maintain primarily what are the software and hardware changes that it has gone through. You can qualify primarily all the information about the CI, including if it is a server, you can capture the model name, make, which vendor, what kind of information, who is managing it, right? What are the various versions, what are the annual maintenance contracts, right? What are the CA relations, what are the associated CA related to it, right? Any standard SOP documents that you need to have with the CA is available, right? So in addition to that, you can also create various services. For example, so I have created a mail as a service here, and you will be able to see a completely viewable CA relationship using this particular CA relationship builder that we have, based on which you can identify what are the routers and what are the associated hosts that are available. If there is any host which are also dependent with other application, other teams, that is also identified using this CMDB relationship. So change is primarily the CMDB component is primarily will become an integral part of change management, and any CI that needs to be changed or probably a data or you want to update as per ITIL process, you need to have an associated change record that should be always available, without which primarily you will not be able to implement the CI record, update the CI record. Right? Of course, there are overriding configurations that are available in case of dynamic environment. If you want to have dynamic configuration, that is available. So as you can see, overall, Summit provides a complete ease of use, easy to use interface, right? In terms of managing various change processes within an organization. It might be related to infrastructure, application, security, network, anything that can be there. You have a completely onboarded ITIL best practices onboarded already available. You just have to fill in the necessary information and go ahead in terms of primarily implementing this process so that you can primarily have the best visibility of your entire change management process, and you can decode the entire change process from where this trigger came in, whether it was incident or probably a small change I did it in my environment, or it can be through the various application tickets that you get because of which it caused a change, or probably a problem record that you encountered when you were doing a root cause analysis. This primarily the solution for the RCA, right, would have been primarily an upgrade of the application or the infrastructure that is there, based on which you will be able to primarily manage this entire overall change management with ITIL best practices inbuilt within Summit. Right? I hope primarily the session would have helped you to understand how primarily the change management process is simplified, and how primarily if you adapt it, how primarily you can have the visibility of ensuring that there is a minimal downtime of your critical business related infrastructure and applications. Right. So that's wherein I would like to pass. And Raj, any closing comments that you can add, and accordingly we can move forward. So thanks.
Hi. Thanks, Rishi. Let's address the Q&A. We have a few questions. Rishi, you want to take a look at and try and answer?
Thank you, Mr. Rajashekaran, and thank you, Mr. Rishi, for the insightful presentation. Moving to the Q&A, the first question is from the audience. Mr. Sunil asks, can we integrate Summit AI IT asset management with any ITSM tools?
Yes, you definitely can. We have REST API adapters that are available, and based on which we have a lot of use cases in which where we have integrated our tool with other tools. Yes, it can be done.
All right. Mr. Sohan asks, in asset compliance, what parameters or how extend Summit AI ITAM covers? I repeat the question.
Yeah, please repeat the question. Sorry, there was a lag.
In asset compliance, what parameters or how extend Summit AI ITAM covers?
So when you talk about compliance, there can be a wide variety of compliance. It might be related to endpoints, right? Whether my antivirus is up to date, whether my Windows patches are up to date, whether my USB port is open, whether there is more than one local administrator accounts that are available, whether my password policy is in line with my organization-wide policy. These kind of compliances can be monitored through Summit IT Asset Management, and based on which it can provide you intuitive dashboards to provide the insights. And in addition to that, from a software compliance, it can identify based on the procured information. You can compare with the installed account, and based on which you can have advanced SAM features, which includes end of life, end of support softwares that have been there. And in addition to that, you can normalize the entire software, right, based on the publisher's license policy. So wide variety of compliances are available. So depending on the use cases that primarily the customer wants to explore, we can provide the solution there.
All right. Nishant asks, can you talk about integration capabilities of your IT asset management solution?
Yes, as I told you, this was again a repeat question, where primarily we have a REST API integration that is available. So whatever data that is available in Summit system based on the various modules, when you talk about IT asset management, it might include some basic information like the hardware information, or it might be primarily software information that you'd like to have. So all these data can be extensively exchanged with any of the applications that the organization might have, right? For example, an IT asset management can integrate with your procurement system for exchange of live asset information data, or probably the asset allocation information, which is generally not maintained in your fixed asset register, right? You want to ensure that the user related information are tagged and available in your SAP or procurement system. You can definitely do that. So we have REST API connectors that are available, and there is a lot of option that using the front-end configuration, you can also develop custom REST APIs for based on your needs.
Okay. Mr. Rihan wants to know, do you support multi-tenancy?
Yes, that is an integral and most important feature of Summit. Summit does support the multi-tenancy from primarily within the organization at a business unit, or probably if you're from a services industry, you can also onboard multiple customers into the same platform as well, right? In both levels, the multi-tenancy works, and it is also multi-domain supported, right? So in a large conglomerate, right, you can have multiple companies, right? So you can have those kind of multi-tenancy, as well as within an organization, there can be multiple business units. In both ways, the multi-tenancy is fully supported in Summit.
Okay. Ms. Chetna Sharma wants to know, can we skip any of the steps as per our environment?
Right, you can define what kind of, depending on what process you want, you can absolutely have. So one of the key examples from a standardized process is also CAB meeting, emergency changes that you do, right? So you can have emergency changes without going through all these approval mechanisms and other things. You can straight away implementing it, and post implementation, you can always go for a CAB approval. So that is definitely possible.
Mr. Shubham is asking, is CR is editable?
Yes, depending on the access rights you have, CR would be editable, and based on the role access that you have, you will be able to edit it. So you have to define the role accordingly, which the rights are given for editing options.
Ms. Chetna Sharma is again asking how to create multiple tasks.
So you will be able to primarily create a task using the relationship tab from a change record, right? From a change record, there is a relationship tab based on which you can create tasks, right? So you can, there is a create button that is available in the relationship tab, right? From that create tab, you can create tasks. This can be automated tasks. The moment you change a particular type of change, the task can be automatically created. Or if based on assessment, you want to create manual tasks, that is also is available.
Okay. Mr. Ambrish Singh wants to know what will be additional resource consumption if we monitor using this AI tool?
See, I'm not able to get the question. If I'm able to understand the question, and finally what I see is what kind of resources is required to do the change management process. Yes, one of the key aspects that we recommend is primarily to have the understanding of the change management process, right? So how the change management process works. So you will have to have an adequate knowledge about understanding the impact analysis, what primarily would be the flow, right? Any of your primarily server administrators or application administrators who are there at L3 level should be able to understand and manage this. And Summit also offers, from a tool per se, we can offer adequate training. There are a lot of training videos that we publish to our customers, and based on which we can help in terms of using this. So from a resource requirement, it is not that, as the whole idea is primarily to use a standardized process with minimal resource, do more with less. So that's primarily always been the IT directive, right, given by large organizations. So that's how primarily we also have designed this tool in such a way that it requires minimal effort to primarily adapt this particular change process or the whole ITSM tool as a whole.
Mr. Lav Kumar wants to know what are the more modules available in asset management?
So asset management is a holistic single module, right, under which there are multiple functionalities that are available, right, from discovery, and then you have primarily software asset discovery management, software delivery that you can do, patch, primarily identifying patch repositories and other things, and then primarily lifecycle management, right, moving assets from one location to another. So change management process is primarily associated with the service management stack, right? So asset management is primarily a different bunch of this thing. So today's session was not in, but still primarily I'm answering. From asset management, we primarily have all the lifecycle management, discovery, hardware asset and software asset management.
Mitrapal Chauhan is asking, can we support multi-tenant environment with limited access and rights?
Yes, that is what, yes, it can support. Yes, it's a completely multi-tenant, and there are role-based access, and you can also designate for which tenant, which are the users who will be able to access. You can define and configure that.
Mr. Lav Kumar is asking, can we manage licenses in asset management?
Yes, you definitely can.
All right. Tirumala Ravinder Chokam wants to know, does this tool includes an option related to software license, procurement and renewable mechanism?
Yes, so the software license is always tagged to a lot of contracts, right? We have a contract management module in our asset management module, right? So in that, you will be able to track software licenses. And as an individual light item, you can always add custom attributes like warranty or subscription start date, based on which you can have primarily proactive alerts that can be populated given to this thing, and based on which you can have a renewal mechanism triggered.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Rishi and Mr. Rajashekaran. That's all the time we have for today. I thank our speakers for sharing a wealth of information on the practical approach to how to use change management as a lever for improving service delivery and minimizing downtime. To know more, you can get in touch with the Symphony Summit AI team. The contact details are on your screen. Thank you, audience, for your interest and time. We look forward to welcoming you all in our next webinar soon. Have a great evening ahead.